Blues has many styles and subgenres, from acoustic country blues to amped up blues rock and everything in between. Today we're going to look at one of my favorite styles of blues, a swing blues, or more commonly known as a jazz blues. My name is Jack Ruch. Welcome to my channel. Let's get into it. If you listen to records by jazz guitar greats like Wes Montgomery or Grant Green, usually you're going to hear at least one tune that fits the form of a blues. These are tunes that have a 12-bar form, start on the 1 chord, and go to the 4 chord in measure 5. Aside from these two basic things, a lot of other chords get substituted. And today we're specifically going to look at a chord sequence known as the 1-6-2-5. This is a key component that differentiates a jazz blues from a typical 1-4-5 blues you might hear from artists like Freddie King or Otis Rush. So I'm going to comp rhythm to start over the backing track. I'm just going to play down the chords, and I'll put the chord names as well as the chord interval numbers up on the screen so you can follow along. This way you can get a feel for the groove and the chord sequence we're going to be working with today. All right, so when I'm practicing over a longer chord progression like this, I like to isolate certain parts of the progression. This way you can pinpoint any tricky spots and build up vocabulary over those parts specifically. Then that can be tied in with the rest of the progression once you've got a few lines under your fingers. So for this lesson, we're specifically going to look at this 1-6-2-5 section of the progression. We'll build a nice line that outlines these changes, and then once we've got that down, we'll tie it in with an entire solo over the whole 12-bar form. So now I'm going to play the line we're going to learn. I'll play the chords first, and then I'll play the line slowed down. After that, we'll talk about what's happening in this phrase. All right, so this line starts out by outlining a D minor triad. Now, it's really common in this type of a progression for this one chord, before we go into the 1-6-2-5 section, to actually be a major 7 chord, right? Instead of a typical dominant 7 chord like you'd have in the blues. You could also play a 3 minor chord in this spot, and sometimes you'll hear that as a substitute. In fact, this section of a jazz blues progression actually can be changed up a lot, and you'll hear a lot of different substitutions depending on the tune you're listening to or the artist you're listening to. So you'll hear things like maybe a B flat 7 split with a D minor 7, split bar, so two beats of B flat 7, 2 beats of D minor 7 before going to the 6th chord, or you'll hear just the D minor 7 chord or just a B flat major 7 chord. But in this case, what we're playing is basically the notes of a D minor triad. Right, so we're starting with a top note and then going down and coming back up the arpeggio, and then we're hitting a C on top. Right, so kind of the notes of a D minor 7 or an B flat major 9 chord. And this is kind of a common way of playing through an arpeggio like this, to hit a top a note on the top and then come down and play up the arpeggio. You could move this kind of formula around within the arpeggio. You could do right, things like that. Right, so after we do this D minor, we're coming down some of the scale, right? Like a B flat major scale or a D minor scale. Which that's a really common thing to do, kind of come up an arpeggio and down a scale, right? Right, this is another thing that you can sort of take around, right? You could move this around. Right, so that's what we're playing over the 1 chord, right? Over this B flat major 7 chord. We're kind of superimposing a 3 minor sound or a D minor 7 sound over this chord. Then as we go to the 6th chord, which is the G7, we come down and target the 3rd of that chord right on the downbeat as the chord change happens. This is a really key component to outlining changes, is targeting chord tones on the strong beats of the measure. So right on the downbeat on the 1, targeting a strong chord tone like the major 3rd, right? Then from here we jump up and grab a really cool note. This is the flat 9, which gives us a really cool altered, very, jazz bebop type of sound by hitting that flat 9 over the G chord. And then doing a little chromatic walk up to the root. Right? That's just 3 chromatic notes right in a row. So all together, right? So you can hear how it's shifting between those 2 chords, how the line itself is implying the harmony, even without any underlying chords. The line is giving you all the information of what's happening in the chords. And that's really one of the great and fun things about playing over this type of thing, where you can get that to start happening. It really takes your soloing to another level. So from here, right, we kind of play around in this spot before heading to the C minor chord. So, right, so all that is basically out of this C minor. Right, a lot of nice use of chromatic notes, right? Right, that's the 5th down to the flat 5th, just sort of a nice little chromatic passing note to give that a little color. And coming up to the 9 of a C minor, which again just, gives it another color. We could play over these changes and just play strictly chord tones if we wanted to. But by adding things like the flat 9 or the regular 9, we're giving these chords each their own little color and their own little flavor. And then we come down as we move, over the F chord, and then back to the B flat. We're coming down and playing kind of this sort of altered sound to get back to the B flat. So all of this stuff really outlines these changes perfectly. Right, that's all over this kind of major 7 or 3 minor tonality, right? all over that G7 flat 9 kind of G7 altered sound. Right? Outlining some of a C minor or C minor 9 sound. There we come down to the third of the F chord, right? Again, just nice voice leading to get to the third of that F chord, and then falling down this sort of altered sound to get back to the B flat. So a really nice way of tying all these chords together. And a lot of this stuff you could take and break out into your own ideas, right? You could take certain things, like you could even take the same opening and then from here play some different kind of phrase, you know. Right, something different over that G7 to tie to the C minor, right? Some different way of getting to the F chord, and then, right, some other way of getting to that. So you can take these little pieces of a longer phrase like this and tie it together in different ways. You could do all kinds of different things. You could do right, and then you know, right, taking these little elements that outline each one of these chords and tying them together in different ways. But the whole idea here is just to get you started playing over these changes and give you one little piece of vocabulary, one line to get going. So if you can learn this, right, then you can start incorporating that in a chord progression like this. So now I'm going to play a full 12-bar solo over this B flat blues. And I'm going to play, you know, some typical kind of jazzy swing blues phrases over the main part of the progression. And then when we get to this 1-6-2-5 section, I'm going to plug in this line and show you how it can connect together with other things that you might want to play over a full 12-bar solo like this. And all of this stuff is going to be tabbed out and up on my Patreon page. This backing track will be up there too. So here's the full solo. Check it out. All right, guys, so once again, head over to my Patreon page. The link is down in the description if you want the tabs for this lick and for the full solo, as well as the backing track. Hopefully you get something out of this. I encourage you to check out some jazz blues stuff. I'm going to put a Spotify playlist down in the description as well to a bunch of classic kind of swing blues recordings, bunch of stuff that I have sort of curated over the years, this playlist. So check that out and give it a try, practicing over these different changes. There's a lot of cool harmony to sink your teeth into, and I think you'll really get something from practicing this stuff. So until next time, my name is Jack Ruch. Happy practicing and take care.